Hey, good morning. I just wanted to start by sharing a few thoughts from an experience I had yesterday. I was on an online class of sorts, and the woman wanted to start with a meditation, and she pulled some kind of a deck of cards with different images, and she pulled what's called the vision card, and she read the description of the vision card and then suggested we meditate on that. And of course, as you know, I'm in the quote vision business. I've been leading Vision Quest for 35 years. But I went into that meditation, just having that prompt, and I was just really surprised by where I went with it. And most people recognize, think of vision, and it's totally a positive experience. And certainly for me, it has been. But it also had initially a really kind of, I'll just call it a nuanced value. Because a lot of people are really great at vision or having visionary experience because they dissociate, because they had trauma from childhood. And I certainly did, and I'm not going to go into that, but I was a kid who was hit. And so I had a certain amount of childhood from trauma from childhood. And later on, when I was an adolescent, 14, I got sent away to a boarding school. And at that boarding school, I was a working class kid in a very rich and snotty environment of kids who came from different backgrounds. And there I was like ridiculed and humiliated for essentially everything working class about me. My manners, the clothes I wear. I mean, you wouldn't believe the kind of baiting I got because I wore white socks. And so anyway, and what happened during those 3 years was my sense of self. And the adolescence is a time where we really start to create our sense of a separate self. But what happened for me during that time is whatever sense of self I had just kind of like totally collapsed. And I kind of totally pulled in. And fortunately, that after 3 years, I moved on and went to college in California. But I remember how at times some of the things that would happen to me. I had a girlfriend when I was out in California, and sometimes when we would have arguments, conflicts, disagreements, we might be lying in bed, and I was always tended to be slow to respond, but oftentimes what would happen is she'd say something, and then there would be this long pause, and of course she's waiting for me to speak. But oftentimes what happened is I would kind of go in and have this feeling like all of a sudden I could sense my hands and feet, but I would be lying there and down there, and I could feel my feet, but it was like they were hundreds of yards away, and the same with my hands. I was just like I was going away. And I would go into these places, and sometimes I'd be there having conversations with that girlfriend and da da da. And then when I would return, I actually was even unconscious. I thought I talked to her about it. I didn't realize that all of that happened inside, and I thought we'd work this out, and no, that I had just pulled away and distance. I went into quote an altered state. Um, so certainly, I spent those 4 years out in the Bay Area in college, and of course, that was a time of the big explosion of psychedelics, and of course, the appeal of altered states was really strong, in me because I associated those altered states with safety, with a way, of getting away from the, the all of the troubles of life, going into a place where things were open and excited and new, because essentially my experience of myself as a social being was so terrified. And of course, I indulged and certainly used many of them. Now, fast forward 10 years later, in 1979, I read the book Black Elk Speaks, and oh my God, I was so drawn to him, and certainly his story drew me to Vision Quest, but initially what really drew me was his enormous altered state. And that's what got me to hitchhike across the country to the Black Hills and go up alone on Harney Peak and go without food and water. And fortunately, during that first time, I had an altered state, which I won't go into. But I would say after that, I essentially did a Vision Quest every year. And each year, I was trying to create a bigger and bigger altered state. So I call it my crazy phase of vision questing, that urge for an altered state. And eventually, thank God, I got into, because of a crisis in my life, I started going to 12-step meetings, Adult Children of Alcoholics Anonymous. And all of a sudden, I realized the similarity between altered states and drugs and alcohol. They were a great way of avoiding one's life. It's just, when one's life is unbalanced, altered states, whatever they are, can be a wonderful way to avoid the shit and pain of life. Whatever your shit, the particulars of your shit or pain might be, And so, so I just want to say that, it's kind of, it's a life without a connection to what's visionary is not a life I want to lead. It's kind of a life which kind of has no compelling greater focus or greater energy in it. So anyway, I fortunately, through the 12-step groups and meeting, got to the place where I realized, I could no longer run away from my life or avoid my life, and hold out hope for these vacations or trips to wilderness where I could, just be in a different state of mind, a different state of being. So, I want to say in regards to, just to sum up in regards to Vision Quest, there's a really well-known, at least if you're in this field, a well-known saying attributed to many different sources, but it goes like this. A vision without a task is just a pipe dream. A task without a vision is just drudgery. But a vision, along with tasks, is the hope of the world. And so, to me, that in some ways expresses the balance. A vision is about one's connection to this much larger world, this transcendent state, this state which is transpersonal, beyond who we are as an individual in our personal history. And another great saying that I loved is one of my earliest teachers, Sun Bear. He would say, if your vision doesn't grow corn, I don't want to hear about it. Again, and I love that. It says the same thing. Oh yes, you've had some kind of connection to the extraordinary, to what's beyond you, to a world larger than yourself. But does that vision grow corn? Do you bring it into this world and how does it make you a better person? And so today, as I lead Vision Quests, the real core question of a Vision Quest is always, what gift do you have to bring to your people? Do you walk on two legs, one step in that transcendent and sacred world, and the second step into this life, the one we're living now, with all its difficulties? And can we bring something into that world from our time in the other? And if we can't, then we're not doing the real work. Aho.